We got the merch, we got the content, we got the film. Now we got an album. So there's no one in Sacramento doing what we're doing. And there's a $500 cash prize if you can interpret the dream. There's a lot of Easter eggs in there. So I talked about doing 1,000 hours of research just to make sure everything was tip top. Once you let that genie out of the bottle, you're not gonna be able to put it back in. You'll see robots walking around on the street, interacting with people, and it's gonna be wild.
For people that don't know much about the brand Sactown Famous, what is it and what is everything that you guys do?
It's a tech brand. So we use technology to increase Sacramento's profile around the world. And we do that with AI, artificial intelligence, and AR, augmented reality. And we create content and products and merchandise that celebrates the 916 and our culture here.
For people that don't know what augmented virtual reality is, like what exactly is that? I'm sure there's people that know about AI, but AVR might be a little bit more of a distant term.
Yeah, so AR is just anything that gets, it's the images that get put over visuals. Like when you're using let's say the new glasses, the smart glasses, and you're looking at the menus that pop up, that's AR. So that's augmented reality. It's almost like a filter of content that gets put onto your camera lens. So if you're looking through your phone, you'll see it on your phone. You won't see it with your eyes, but when you put the phone over, you see it. And if you're wearing the smart glasses, then you can see it with the smart glasses. Eventually, manufacturers will be putting it into our windshields, when we're using autonomous vehicles, so that when you're driving by, you'll see ads for various different hotels and restaurants and so on that come augmented through your windshield or through your side view mirror.
The music that you do also part of Sactown Famous, or is that part of your personal brand?
We just released a brand new music project. So we have the brand Sactown Famous, and that's merchandise, hoodies, content that you can find online, social media. We use mainly Instagram and YouTube. So it's IG at Sactown Famous or YouTube at Sactown Famous. You can see the content. Then we have merchandise. We have merchandise that is embedded with the AR content. So when you hold your phone or your smart glasses over your hoodie, your poster, your collectible sticker, it comes to life in a holographic manner.
Let's start with the augmented virtual reality. So you mentioned the cards, but how do those cards work?
With augmented reality, what it lets you do is essentially embed an animation into an image. Or a landmark, for example, or a building, so you have a structure and then you have an animation attached to that. When you hold the phone or the glasses over the image, it acts as a trigger to run the animation. And that's what you see on the back end, or on the front end. You see the animation itself. You
hover over the picture and it comes to life. So then for businesses, that people that want to advertise inside their store, maybe with their customers, or for people that have billboards, like if someone has the app, you're driving by, you can open up your camera and the billboard is going to come to life.
Yeah. And there's some really cool next level marketing stuff you can do where you can put promo codes in those animations.
Oh, sick.
And then you can do scavenger hunts with customers and consumers. Those things are big already in other markets outside of Sacramento, like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Tokyo, etc., New York. But all we're trying to do is bring some of that pizzazz here to the 916.
So when you got into all this AVR stuff, did you need any education or training or certificates to kind of learn how to create all of the graphics and holograms?
Honestly, no. But I did have a lot of access to like keynotes, and it took a while. If you have an internet access, there's really nothing that you can't do or find or look into. And so it's really accessible to anyone who's interested.
5 to 10 years from now, where do you think augmented virtual reality is going to be at?
I think it'll be everywhere. We're not really big on the glasses. Me, myself too, I'll put them on for novelty, but I'm not gonna, it's not my lane. The phone works great for me, but like I was saying, the kids growing up, and the data shows that they're totally all into it. They like the headsets, and it's not a jump for them. It's normal. So I anticipate people walking around. You'll see people walking around with headsets. You'll see robots walking around on the street, interacting with people, and it's gonna be wild.
Before you got into AVR, what were you doing, and what inspired you to make the jump into the field?
The pandemic, everything shut down. Had to pivot. In the Sacramento music scene, people had known us as Sactown Famous being a music thing, and had to rebrand. And tech we're a tech thing. And we do music. We just launched the Dr. Boom project, which is our us. So we got the merch, got the content, we got the film. Now we got an album. So there's no one in Sacramento doing what we're doing. The tech definitely was the next logical progression, because felt like with everything being shut down, and plus music is a tough business. Anyone who knows, it's not about, you could have a great song, you could be the best drummer in the world, and still nobody sees your stuff. But if you want to excel in sports, you want to be a champion, you want to win, belts and ribbons and trophies. The trick is, if you talk to the star athletes or competitors, is to know where the ball's going to be and then to be there. You know what I mean? So the difference between someone who's just participating and someone who's actually competing and winning is, one guy is watching where the ball is, and the other guy knows where the ball is going to be, and then he positions himself there. So in a nutshell, we just saw that the ball was heading that way. So now we're in a good position.
And that's good, being ahead of the ball, knowing where it's going and predicting it. Me being in that place, but I'll probably get hit in the face with the ball. What were your biggest challenges as you're kind of pivoting or getting into AVR?
The biggest challenges is always capital, right? When you have an imagination, and you can create an idea, or you have an idea, then it takes a lot to bring that on a scale, right? So like, I have an idea for a hat, let's say, or a shirt, I have to do a minimum order, right? So it's going to be 100 to 200 pieces. So you just got to make sure that, your margins, you have to kind of have to test stuff out, get feedback, see what people respond to. You want to go all in on a slam dunk, especially when you're getting off the ground. Once you have some success and there's more margins, then it gives you some flexibility.
Throughout this journey, with all the ups and downs, what has been the most rewarding part for you?
The most rewarding part is seeing the feedback. We have over like 10 million remixes on YouTube.
Amazing.
So that's over 10 million people who've seen content we developed here in the 916 that, are familiar with Sacramento. They've seen the logo. When we did the Sac Gamers Expo 2 months ago in Roseville, and had a big 7-foot cardboard cutout of Autonomous, the merciless mech, the bad guy from the movie that we made, and kids loved it, and want to take selfies with it, and take pictures of them and stuff like that. So yeah, so I would say that's probably the most rewarding.
So for people that want to check out more, where can they find your augmented virtual reality stuff or your store?
Yeah. Okay. So if you want to check out, we have a website, SactownFamous.com. We also, if you want to check out, like, that's where you get the merch. We have social media if you want to see some content. So we have YouTube at Sactown Famous is the channel. On Instagram at Sactown Famous is our channel. We're not on TikTok. We don't use Facebook for the brand. I use Facebook just personally, whatever. If you Google Sactown Famous, or you Google Shape of Things to Come by TonySavo, or you Google or ChatGPT first AI generated film in IMAX, we have a huge presence.
What kind of sparked the idea on creating the film?
Wanting to raise awareness, and kind of like let people know, hey, brace for impact. You're never going to get a straight story out of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, they're all millionaires and billionaires. So like, they have a very different understanding of life and like work and economics and finances and all that kind of stuff. Like, they never think about the price of something, they never, it's just a lifestyle. It's remarkable. And just wanting to say, hey guys, I see a huge storm on the horizon, and I don't see any way out of it. I don't think there's any way out of it, but here's at least a little heads up. Don't hold your breath or anything. I'm not a prophet or anything, but I do fancy myself a futurist, and that's just being able to look at data, identify patterns, and then trajectories off of those patterns.
So on that same lines, what is the storyline about? What's kind of
so it's loosely based on autobiographical, where you got the main character is a freelancer named Tommy Timex. And he's from Sacramento. He's a gig worker. He winds up discovering the tech lane out in the Bay Area, and starts working the gigs out there. Starts doing like the keynotes and the conferences and the after parties and all that. And then he learns the AI and AR, starts working on his own little little app or his own little way of promoting that stuff on social media. It takes off. He's about to do a big deal, and then there's an incident that happens. So the incident's a setback, and then that incident propels him into a vision of the future, and then it's just about him, navigating from there.
Was the storyline mostly all your creative work, or did you use AI to kind of shape some of the storyline?
Yeah, no. So there's no AI in the story. There's no AI in the dialogue. The AI aspect of it was just to complement the human storytelling aspect of it. So I believe like storytelling is our oldest tradition, from all tribes and people and clans and nations. The elders telling, around the campfire, or around the, the village or whatnot, who we are, how we got here, what we're here to do and how we do things, is probably the oldest tradition that we have as a species. And so the idea was to show how technology could help augment that in a sense, right? So instead of writing a script, I wanted to make a script that you could watch. When I was doing this, there was no Sora, there was no like VO3. You still had to train your own bots to get certain outputs. There wasn't any facial consistency with your characters, so I had to come up with creative ways to kind of work around that. And I think we did a good job. But now, obviously, if I was to make the film now, it would look totally different. But I want to say that it's the story, the characters, and the dialogue that is the most important part of the film, more than just the visuals. The visuals are great, but I feel like if you were just to listen to the film all like as a MP3, I feel like you'd still get a really good experience out of it.
When you were creating the film, did you run into any like major issues or challenges?
Well, it started off with, could I make a film? I saw an interview where Chaz, he was saying he wrote Bronx Tale. They were saying, how'd you come up with Bronx Tale? And he said, well, it just started with a memory. He had a group of like actors, writers that he would get together with once a week. And he said, I just workshopped it. I added 1 or 2, 3 minutes to it a week. And at the end of a year, I had a whole film, that I could do by myself. And so I thought, let me just make a scene. Let me see if it was possible. I made a scene, and it worked, And I said, okay, well, what would happen before then? What would happen after that? And then that's when I started saying, okay, I gotta, okay, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna jump in this lane, and I'm gonna give it a shot. If you're a creative person, what happens is you get halfway into an idea, and then you start getting ideas for something new, right? Like because you discover some stuff, or you find out, or whatever, and you're like, oh, you know what? It would be great was if I did it. But I was just like, no. And then every other day there was new technology coming out that would give better results, but different output. So it would look different. It would look like there was like just a whole bunch, like a collage of the final product. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna see it through with the guys I started with, and just come into that. But I got halfway through, and I got terrified. I said, man, I got half a film here. I've already shown it to a couple people doing test audiences and focus groups and stuff. See if people are if they like it, if it's going good, feedback. And I was like, how am I going to land this? How am I going to land this? But just took it step by step, and it was a real walk of faith.
What made you go with the narration versus like having the characters speak and stuff like that?
It was just a matter of budget. The whole thing was made on a mobile device with open source technology. So it was real important to me to showcase what you could do on a mobile device without being an engineer, without knowing how to write a line of code, without having unlimited resources to download every app or whatever. I just used a handful. I used Luma Labs, Dream Machine. I used Runway AI, and then I used 11 Labs for some of the characters. I have a recording studio from doing the music stuff still in Sacramento here. So I just did the voiceover for the characters, recorded that actual. So that's not AI, but Tommy is all real. Autonomous is all real. And then there's a couple little side characters that I needed extra voices. That's why I used AI for that, 11 Labs. And that was it. Yeah. And that's the thing is like, as an artist, right? When you get done with something, you there's this like thing where I could have made the sky bluer, I could have made that flower a little bigger, I could have cut that shot a little tighter or something, like but at the end of the day, like you got to pull the trigger, right? That's what leadership is you set your sights on something, you measure it, you take your shot, and hit or miss, you live with it.
In the film, there's a group of people sitting around. They're drinking wine on their phones, and there's this phrase that says they're all connected, but they are disconnected. And that statement really stood out to me.
A lot of the branding behind the technology, it's going to connect us. It's going to make us more of this. It's going to make it, but it never does, right? And we see it when we look at the data. The data is conclusive that people are isolated, especially kids growing up. You know, when I look at the value of what we're able to do now versus where we were at like in the 80s, I don't see the juice isn't worth the squeeze to me. You know what I mean?
4 pillars get mentioned like a few times. They come back up. So what are those 4 pillars, or what is that alluding to?
There's a lot of Easter eggs in there. So I talked about doing 1,000 hours of research just to make sure everything was tip top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to announce the Nebuchadnezzar challenge. So there's an ancient story about a king Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, who had a dream, and he wanted the interpretation of the dream, and there was none of his boys, the people of his age could interpret it except for this one fella. And that one fella that interpreted, he won a reward for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to announce, TonySavo announces the Nebuchadnezzar challenge for Shape of Things to Come, and there's a $500 cash prize if you can interpret the dream, you know, the vision there. The 4 pillars is part of that.
Wow.
All right.
Now there's another section in there that goes into the prisoner's dilemma, and I hadn't heard of that before. So what is the prisoner's dilemma?
The prisoner's dilemma is a specific scenario in game theory, in the tech world, where you have 2 people that get caught by, you know, let's say the cops. Let's say they're both the robbers, right? And the cops come to them individually and say, if you confess and throw the other person under the bus, you know, we'll go easy on you. But if you don't, we're gonna treat you just as harsh as them, you know. And then they go to the other person and they tell them the same story, in essence, to try and get one to turn on the other, right? Well, what do you think is going to happen when it's not China versus US, but it's man versus machine? There's your game theory. You know.
Wow. Yeah. The first AI film, the premiere on IMAX. What did that mean for you?
Woo, that was so crazy. When I made the film, I thought, believe it or not, even though I was roasting the tech bros, I thought they had thick skin. You know, I thought they could take a joke, you know. So it was a narrative film, a real human story with AI. So I thought I thought they were going to take it and say, hey, this guy did it. He gets it. He's using the technology to tell stories and stuff, but they didn't feel for it. So when it got picked up by a traditional film festival, Sactown Movie Buffs, and then to have it debut, you know, in my own hometown on the biggest screen in town, IMAX, the idea of made a movie on my mobile phone and now it's playing on the big screen in IMAX is so disruptive to even the disruptors. I guess they thought that they were going to release this disruptive technology, but then they would be immune from it. As it turned out, even they are, you know, you can't, once you let that genie out of the bottle, you're not going to be able to put it back in.
If you could travel back in time and meet your younger you, what are 3 pieces of advice that you would give yourself?
1, invest in Google. Yahoo. No,
there's a lot of lottery numbers.
Yeah. No. Well, I would tell myself, I would say, you got to march to the beat of your own drum. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for orthodox. Orthodox, the traditional method, has an incredible value. But once you learn it, then unorthodoxy has greater value in my opinion. You know what I mean? And then I would say, master yourself. Like one of the things I feel like in our society is people float around a lot. They're trying to be like a jack of all trades, you know, master something, you know. So don't buy into the hype. Learn to master something, and go all in with God. Just trust God.
Thank you so much, Tony, for coming again. TonySavo.com, SactownFamous.com. For everybody watching, I hope you enjoyed the episode on AI, AVR, film with our special guest. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care and goodbye.
Thanks, guys.